Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu wa Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man istanna bi sunnatihi bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana li hada wa ma kunna linahtadi lawla an hadana Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to welcome you to another session from the commentary in the 40 Hadith of Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. And by the fadl of Allah, we are now closing out on these 42 odd Hadith. And we are going to talk about hadith number 38. This is a hadith on the concept of the wilaya, the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And without any further ado, let us begin the recitation of the hadith. عن أبي هريرة رضي عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله تعالى قال من عادى لي وليا فقد آذنته بالحرب وما تقرب إلي عبدي بشيء أحب إلي مما افترضته عليه ولا يزال عبدي يتقرب إلي بالنوافل حتى أحبه فإذا أحببت كنت سمعه الذي يسمع به وبصره الذي يبصر به ويده التي يبطش بها ورجله التي يمشي بها ولئن سألني لأعطين ولئن استعاذني لأعوذنه. Rawahul Bukhari. Abu Hurairah anhu reported the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, whosoever acts with enmity towards a wali of mine, I will indeed declare war against him. Nothing endears my servant to me more than doing what I have made obligatory upon him. And my servant continues to draw nearer to me with supererogatory prayer so that I love him. When I love him, I shall be his hearing with which he hears, his sight with which he sees, his hands with which he holds, and his feet with which he walks. And were he to ask something of me, I will surely give it to him. And if he takes refuge in me, I will certainly grant him it. Related by Al-Bukhari. Muqaddimah or introduction of this hadith. So, the awliya, which is the plural of wali, of Allah, glorified and sanctified be He, are those obedient servants who perform good deeds that bring them closer to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. The concept of wilaya, being a wali of Allah, is based on this hadith in this collection of Al-Arba'un. And also it's based from 3 ayats from Surah Yunus in the Quran Kareem. This is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says,
ألا أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون له في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة لا تبديل لكلمات الله ذلك هو الفوز العظيم.
Allah says, unquestionably the awliya of Allah, no fear shall come upon them, nor shall they grieve. They are the ones who believed and used to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much. For them are glad tidings in this life and in the hereafter. No change is there in the words of Allah. That is the great attainment. So continuing with this introduction on this hadith, lessons. So definition of wali. Who is a wali of Allah? This hadith starts off with Man adali waliyan faqad adhantuhu bil harb. Whoever acts with enmity towards a wali of mine, I will indeed declare war against him. So this is what this beautiful hadith starts off with. So immediately we recognize that to be a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something great. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the status of this wali even before defining his or her attributes. So Allah declares war against those who act with hatred or enmity or violence against the person beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And based on this hadith and also these ayat of Surah Yunus, which we just recited, the concept of wilayah comprises the following characteristics. Number one, this wali, he or she loves, has the great love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Number 2, has khashyatullah, has the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 3, the great belief, the very high and firm belief in Allah and His messengers, alayhimus salam. And number 4, devotion, honesty and sincerity towards Allah. Sidq, ikhlas, and also devotion. And number 5, the obedience, ta'atillah wa rasulih, following the injunctions and the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the 5 prerequisites to become a wali of Allah. And in fact, these are the characteristics also of the righteous ones, the mu'minun, and also of course, the higher you are, you become towards muhsin, which is the highest level in iman. And on the other hand, the enemies of Allah are those who are the opposite, the evildoers, who do not follow the right path. And the result of their evil actions causes them to be the opposite, distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they're also distant as a result from His blessings, His support, His love as well. Misconceptions of the awliya. So in defining who are the awliya or the wali, or who is the wali, it is important to clear common misconceptions regarding them, because this is unfortunately commonplace. And these misconceptions arise when people consider a wali, for example, as someone who has special abilities or karama, such as, for example, in claims that their dua will be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, in the Desi culture, in the Indo-Pak culture, we have the Pir Sahib, who people go to, ask them to make a certain dua for them, as if their dua is mustajab, is going to be answered. It really goes against the concept of someone who is a wali, and we'll see exactly how. And a true wali, of course, would be extremely shy to claim that he is or she is closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or more closer than others. Is sheer lack of ikhlas and also humbleness. And this is exactly contrary to what we would expect to see from a wali, because it is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who is the true wali to him, of course. We do not know. And unfortunately, many individuals who claim to be awliya use their quote-unquote special abilities to gain people's attention, obedience, and unfortunately also it's about the money, also their money as well. Wilaya is actually an internal state. Okay, it's an internal state of the heart due to the obedience and the hubb of Allah. A true wali would steer away from any acknowledgement, recognition or publicity of their virtue and their maqam, their station. We were talking about iman, we talked about ihsan, many different ways in which we can go to the excellent high station, and this is perhaps the most highest station of ihsan, which is being a wali, attain the wilaya. Allahumma jalna minhum. So we look at this hadith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this Qudsi hadith says, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُهُ عَلَيْهِ. Nothing endears my servant to me more than doing what I have made obligatory upon him to do. Number 1 step. So here from this hadith, this part of the hadith, this section, we see that there are 2 levels of servitude. The first part of this hadith, we see that the first level is fulfilling the wajibat and avoiding the prohibitions, the muharramat. How many times have we seen this concept again and again? So subhanAllah, through studying these hadith of the collection of Arba'un, we see the priorities are laid out for us. So we cannot go wrong, because this is a step-wise pathway to wilaya. We cannot go to step number 10 without going through steps number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a pathway. We have to take steps, graded steps, calculated steps, and it takes effort. And the first level is fulfilling the wajibat and away from the muharramat. And then the second level again is after fulfilling the wajibat, then going towards the nawafil. وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُ عَلَيْهِ. And if you look at this first level, this is something actually which every Muslim is required to do. Because this is the minimal level of wilaya which is actually expected from all believers. So every Muslim actually has to have some part of wilaya. Because here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in this Qudsi Hadith that the minimum level of servitude occurs when this is fulfilled. The fara'id and the muharramat are away from the muharramat. Okay, so this is the minimal level of wilaya which is expected by all believers. Okay. And the early scholars say that the one who loves Allah should automatically obey Him. Okay, this is automatic. Okay, otherwise his love is only a claim. Again, this is all about love. It's easy to claim love. Yeah, I love Allah. But the main thing is, does He love you? Okay, because indeed, if you are true to the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no doubt you're going to be mahbub. You're going to be mahbub, you're going to be beloved to Him. The second category of servitude is for those who go beyond the obligations. They go beyond the obligations and prohibitions and become persistent to do the supererogatory, the mustahab, the sunnah actions, the nawafil actions. Again, we mentioned the many different terms for these actions. And it is these people who are closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they go the extra mile. Because of their dedication, their persistence in their worship and effort to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their whole life becomes revolved around pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the next level. The purpose of life becomes to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the utmost. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. They're exerting their utmost as much as they can. And thus, as a result, these people are closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by being dedicated, by being persistent. And consequently, eventually, they reach a degree of wara and wilaya, which makes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love them. But what is it which makes these servants persistent in the nawafil? What is it? The factor which allows these servants to be persistent is their genuine love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the key thing. The second level can only be obtained if Allah's obligations and prohibitions are fulfilled. So if you're doing tahajjud salah and you sometimes miss a fard here and there, I mean, what's the point? You cannot intentionally miss a fard prayer and be persistent in the sunnah prayers. It's just an oxymoron, it's contradictory. So we have to make sure those are completely fulfilled in the best manner, because that's the only way we can get to the second level of wilaya, which is the highest rank, the highest maqam. So the awliya, they're described also as sabiqun, the ones who are the foremost in performing the good deeds. Just like the awliya are keen in doing the nawafil, they're also likewise, they avoid the non-preferable acts, the makruhat. So they avoid, they go forward to the sunnah, the mustahab actions, right, the nawafil. By the other hand also, they make sure to stay away from the makruh acts as well. In this way, they basically even elevate themselves more. And Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he mentions that there are certain actions which bring about the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these include the following. Number one, the nawafil prayers that the Prophet ﷺ used to perform on a daily basis. This is part and parcel of being a wali. Number two, the recitation of the Quran, and also listening to it with full attention and understanding. So really connection with the Book of Allah. Okay. Not just mere recitation, true recitation, understanding the Quran, contemplating, going to the depths of the heart and the mind. Number three, the remembrance of Allah. Dhikrullah. What is uttered by the tongue also corresponds to what is in the heart. It's not just empty words. It is words which connect to the heart and limbs. This is the true dhikr of Allah, which elevates us all the way, our actions go all the way to the sama'. They fill the scales as well. May Allah allow our dhikr to reach that high level, inshaAllah. Our deen is not a deen of mere rituals. It's where all these actions, they connect to the heart and mind. And there are other actions as well. And one is to love good Muslims who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can you be a wali? You be close to those, you befriend those who are obviously close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ says in a very beautiful and famous hadith, he says, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahab. The man or the person will be with the one who he loves. So if you're going to be with those people who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who love the message, who exemplify the sunnah, then it's going to be automatic that you're going to be with those people and in the same rank. So befriend those who are higher than you in status, who are good people. Do not let others who are below you affect you and bring you down. You have to go up. Okay, that's basically what the muhsin aims for. He goes to the higher peak. And another potent means to increase the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the tahajjud prayer. This is what made the muhajirun. Okay, this is what elevated them. I mean, continuously where they were obligated to do the tahajjud prayer, the qiyamul layl. Okay, this is what kept them going, kept their batteries on high. So following this sunnah is another very important tool which makes us beloved to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Imran, and this is ayah 31, this is ayah which we have recited many times. He says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Say, if you should love Allah, then follow me. فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. Then Allah will love you. يَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ يَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And He will forgive your sins, and Allah is forgiven in mercy. But the key thing here with respect to this hadith is, if you love Allah, then follow me. This is what the Prophet ﷺ was commanded. And what is the result? يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. What can be better than يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ? Allah will love you. Okay. So how do we gain the wilayah of Allah? Very simple. Follow the sunnah. Follow the Messenger of Allah, because he was the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-mar'u ma'a man ahab. You will be with the one who you love. Okay, so the more you love Prophet really will be to exemplify him sallallahu in his mannerism, following that gift that he was given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Quran, and so many other things. Again, this is a course on hadith, following the Prophet sallallahu in the guidance which he was given for humanity. Okay, so if we implement that, if we are torchbearers of the sunnah, then inshallah ta'ala, we are the most in terms of being chosen for that category of wilayah. Allahumma jalna minhum. So going forward in this beautiful hadith, so the love of Allah leads to the nawafil. We said that, right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say the following dua. He says, إن من دعاء داود يقول اللهم إني أسألك حبك وحب من يحبك والعمل الذي يبلغني حبك اللهم اجعل حبك أحب إلي من نفسي وأهلي ومن الماء البارد. قال وكان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا ذكر داود يحدث عنه قال كان أعبد البشر. The Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said one of Prophet Dawood alayhi salam's supplications was, O Allah, I ask you for your love, the love of those who love you, and the deeds which will cause me to attain your love. O Allah, make your love dearer to me than myself, my family, and the cold water. And this is narrated by Abu Darda in Sunan Tirmidhi, graded Hasan Gharib. And also the Prophet after this hadith mentioned that whenever he mentioned Dawood, he used to say about him that he was the most in terms of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the people. And from this powerful dua, some of the early scholars also state that those who perform acts of worship out of their love of Allah will be persistent in their deeds without depression or frustration. They will not feel bored of doing good deeds which make them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like perhaps many of us. The heart of an individual who loves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure, and this person strives to do the nawafil deeds with earnest pleasure. To have pleasure in doing the nawafil, then this is also a sign and maqam of those who are awliya. There are other benefits as well of doing the nawafil acts, and again these are detailed in this hadith. One of these is making up for the deficiency in the obligatory acts themselves. So, and we mentioned that as well. The Prophet ﷺ said, أول ما يحاسب به العبد يوم القيامة صلاته فإن أكملها كتبت له نافلة فإن لم يكن أكملها قال الله سبحانه لملائكته انظروا هل تجدون لعبدي من تطوع فأكملوا بها ما ضيع من فريضته ثم تؤخذ الأعمال على حسب ذلك. the first thing for which a person will be brought on account of on the day of judgment will be his salah, his prayer. If it is complete, then the voluntary prayers will also be recorded for him as an increase. If it is not complete, then Allah will say to the angels, look and see whether you find any voluntary prayers for my slave, and take them to make up for what is lacking from his obligatory prayers. Then all his deeds will be reckoned in the like manner. Narrated by Tamim ad-Dari in Sunan Ibn Majah, graded Sahih by Al-Albani. So look at this beautiful hadith. Look at how it can save us. And for many of us, it's necessary for us to be saved on the account of our salah and the fard actions. I mean, how many of the Muslims are complete in their obligatory deeds and staying away from the muharramat? Unfortunately, these days, it's a minority of people. And even from the minority of those who are supposedly practicing, how many of them, their deeds are complete in terms of the faraid and staying away from the muharramat. We are in times of tribulation. We need these nawafil prayers to perhaps be our lifeline on that day of judgment, where it perhaps may be likely that our obligatory deeds to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have deficiencies in them. Even if we complete it, how many of those are really done with sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's really a scary day. I mean, scary proposition to be standing on that day and have a hisab. Even if you come with your deeds, I mean, how many of those are going to be checked off as proper? It's really, I mean, if you think about it, something which should give us the shivers. May Allah make it easy day for us, ameen. Second part of the hadith says that فَإِذَا أَحْبَبْتُ كُنْتُ سَمْعَهُ الَّذِي يَسْمَعُ بِهِ وَبَصَرَهُ الَّذِي يُبْصِرُ بِهِ وَيَدَهُ الَّتِي يَبْطِشُ بِهَا وَرِجْلَهُ الَّتِي يَمْشِي بِهَا. Wow, amazing stuff. When I love him, this is Allah saying in this Qudsi hadith, I shall be his hearing with which he shall hear, his sight with which he shall see, his hands with which he shall hold, and his feet with which he shall walk. And another common saying of the scholars is the following: the matter is not that you love him, but it is if he loves you. And if you are loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you will be bestowed with his mercy, his blessing, his support, his guidance as well. In another Qudsi hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says the following: إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى إِذَا أَحَبَّ عَبْدًا نَادَى جِبْرِيلَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَبَّ فُلَانًا فَأَحِبَّهُ فَيُحِبُّهُ جِبْرِيلُ ثُمَّ يُنَادِي جِبْرِيلُ فِي السَّمَاءِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَحَبَّ فُلَانًا فَأَحِبُّهُ يُحِبُّهُ أَهْلُ السَّمَاءِ وَيُودَعُ لَهُ الْقَبُولُ فِي أَهْلِ الْأَرْضِ. If Allah loves a person, He calls Jibreel saying, Allah loves so and so, oh Jibreel, love him. So Jibreel would love him, and then he would make an announcement in the heavens: Allah has loved so and so. Then love him also. Then you should love him also. So all the dwellers of the heavens would love him. And then he is granted the pleasure of the people on the earth also. Narrated Abu Hurairah and Sahih Bukhari. Beautiful hadith. Look at the benefits of being the mahbub of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this great statement implies that the beloved servant will be taken to the higher level until he reaches the level of ihsan. And it is at this level that he is able to practice mushahada, which is worshipping Allah as if he sees him. Remember, ihsan, أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. Right? And if he cannot see him, that he knows he has muraqabah, that Allah is seeing him. These are the two stations of ihsan. The highest one is mushahada. And it is important to know that this seeing of Allah is not literal, but metaphorical. Again, as we saw from the story of the Quran Kareem, when Musa alayhi salam being pushed and persuaded by his people to ask to see Allah, what happened to him? So we're incapable, our body is incapable of seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But inshallah, if we make it to Jannah, our home, right, our promised home, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enable us to taste the greatest pleasure of Jannah, which is to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally. Allahumma jannah minhum. Okay. So this is not a literal seeing, but a metaphorical seeing. Okay. And it's also impossible for Allah to become a person's hearing, seeing, etc. These are metaphorical terms we need to understand, because some people twist that idea. It's just not possible. Remember, to see Allah, the worshipper sees the creation and bounty of Allah. That's how the one who is able to attain mushahada, they see the creation and bounty of Allah all around him or her, as opposed to those who have not yet given that vision or scope. Their whole life becomes seeing the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because really He is the source, subhanahu wa ta'ala, of our creation, of our beings, even our actions, right? Are creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So similarly in this hadith, the hearing, the grip, the sight, and the walk of the believer is also metaphorical and not literal. And such a state is the state of the wali, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showers him or her with His mercy and makes it easier to worship and glorify Him. Remember, you take one step to Him, He takes two steps. You come walking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He comes running. This is again the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us. Okay, for us. He loves us more than our parents, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thus this is a ni'mah which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows on the wali, that He just makes things easier for them in terms of allowing them not to see things which are displeasing to Him, preventing them from hearing things which are displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not walking in that place which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like. This is basically what this last part of the hadith entails. So thus in this way, the servant will be shielded from evil and sin. And it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who will do this karama for this wali without him even realizing it. And that's the thing. No one can claim that they are the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But those who truly are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does great things. This is why we should be close to those who are highest in iman. We can't shun them, we have to befriend them. And also be very careful to the mu'min, to the believer, to do anything against them, oppress them. Because if they're the wali of Allah, guess who's going to come to their rescue? And guess who is going to be war with you? So this is also scareheady in that respect as well, to not mess with the believer. Because any believer may be the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What could be worse than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declaring war against someone? It's just a no-win situation. So this servant, this wali, will be shielded from sin. And example of this actually comes from one of the Sahaba. This is Umar bin Khattab, where the Prophet ﷺ said, Ihan yabna Khattab, walladhi nafsi biyadi, ma laqiyaka shaytanu salikan fajjan illa salaka fajjan ghayra fajjik. Beautiful hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, O Ibn Khattab, by the one whose hand is my life, whenever shaitan sees you taking away, he falls away other than yours. And this is narrated by Muhammad bin Sa'ad in Sahih al-Bukhari. So strong was Umar bin Khattab in his iman, that if anything evil came, he would just make him more stronger. This is how also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala paves the path for the wali. The shaitan, even they distance themselves from the wali. Next is the importance of tawheed to wilaya. The end result of tawheed is that we only worship, glorify and obey and love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fear Him the most. And this is strengthened also by performing the preferable acts, by the nawafil acts, to such an extent that the heart is fully devoted. Our whole lives are devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. And such a heart will not be influenced or enslaved by anything else. And when the whole life becomes, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created mankind and jinn except to worship me. So since they take place when a person loves that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates, or hates that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, and they also occur when self-interest is given priority and dominance over the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, over the muharramat as well. And as a result, sins creep in and they cause the tawheed of an individual to be tarnished. The next part of this hadith is وَلَئِن سَأَلَنِي لَأُعْطِيَنَّهُ. And if he asks of me, I will surely give it to him. وَلَئِن إِسْتَعَاذَنِي لَأُعِيذَنَّهُ. And if he takes refuge in me, يعني asks for help from Allah, Allah surely will protect him. I will surely grant it. And this further amplifies the special status of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the dua and the request of such individuals are answered. Mustajabud dua. So their dua also are answered as well. This is again someone who are not going to boast that, oh, come to me, I will make sure your dua gets answered. These are the fake awliya of Allah. They're just there, dollar scholars or whatever. They're just there for the money, their dunya. The famous says, the true wali, their dua answered, and they are shy as well. When you look at the Salaf and the story Sahaba, we see signs of awliya and wilaya in them as well, in their actions. This is why it's important to also, after studying the Quran, the Sunnah, and the Seerah, look at the stories of Sahaba, look at the stories of Salaf and Saleh as examples of how we should also carry out Islam and practice the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So, with regards to dua, it is important to know that supplication is not necessarily answered also in this life. So sometimes we get impatient. The Prophet ﷺ says, مَا مِن مُسْلِمٍ يَدْعُو بِدَعْوَةٍ لَيْسَ فِيهَا إِثْمٌ وَلَا قَطِيعَةُ رَحِمٍ إِلَّا أَعْطَاهُ اللَّهُ بِهَا إِحْدَى ثَلَاثٍ إِمَّا أَن يُؤَجِّلَ لَهُ دَعْوَتَهُ وَإِمَّا أَن يَدَّخِرَهَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ وَإِمَّا أَن يَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ مِنَ السُّوءِ مِثْلَهَا. There is no Muslim who calls upon his Lord with a dua in which there is no sin or severing of family ties, but Allah will give him one of three things. Okay, number one, either He will answer his prayer quickly, or He will store it in the akhirah, or He will divert an equivalent evil away from him. The mu'minun, the Muslimun, we have to be content with the dua. When we do the dua, it is answered, not in the way that you want it to be, because many times, because of our limitations, right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's best for us. He will indeed do that, even though we think we know what's best for us. So number one, He will answer this prayer quickly, subhanahu wa ta'ala, or He will store it in the akhirah. Keep it on, reserved for the akhirah, for the greater day. Or He will divert an equivalent evil from him, away from him. And this is narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri in Musnad Ahmad, and great is authentic by Al-Haythami. So going forward, so thus it is very important for us to realize that regardless of whether a dua was fulfilled, there are blessings and mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a result of making it. Inni qareeb ujibu da'wata da'i idha da'an fastajibu li wal yu'minu bi la'allahum yarshudun. Beautiful ayah from Surah Baqarah. I am indeed near. I answer the prayer of the one who calls. Again, these are the three pathways of dua. So it's great also that we should remember that as well, all of us, including myself as well. Because sometimes we get very hasty in terms of making a dua and thinking that when is it going to be answered. But it's already been answered, fulfilled. Okay. And in fact, the blessings of dua will also be granted, of course, in the akhirah. And this is perhaps the greatest blessing of dua, that it will be reserved for us on the day when it's the worst situation. And so, there's many authentic ahadith which record the things of the Prophet ﷺ as to what he used to seek refuge from. The collection, for example, in the Sunan of Imam Nasa'i, in the chapter of Isti'adah, also notes many such ahadith, and these include supplications such as seeking refuge from poverty, from ignorance, from the punishment of the grave, sadness, diseases. There's even isti'adah and dua against senility to prevent from us being senile, because we want to inshallah also preserve our aql to the last moments where we can continue remembering and contemplating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So in conclusion, from highlights from this beautiful hadith, this Qudsi hadith gives us a description of the believers who are the awliya, those who are at the highest level of faith in ihsan. It is important to know that the awliya do not have any visible signs that distinguish them from others. This is because theirs is an internal station and rank that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, by virtue of their piety, their sincerity, and their humbleness. And this hadith actually starts with a distinct and stark warning for all not to harm these special awliya of Allah who are among the ranks of the community of the righteous believers. And we don't know who they are, so we have to be very careful and treat the believers, the mu'minun, the Muslims in the best way, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already obligated to us through these beautiful hadith as well. Thus, this hadith also becomes a general warning to not to harm any believer, since he may be beloved to Allah. And from this hadith also we see the first step to attaining walaya, to be a wali, is to fulfill the obligations and avoid the prohibitions of Allah Almighty. And it is only after perfecting these obligations that one can get closer to Allah by doing the supererogatory or the nawafil actions. We see that indeed those who are consistent in doing the nawafil actions have a deep love of Allah. That is what drives them. Okay, and then Allah starts to love them. In addition to the nawafil actions, there are other things as well that we can all do to perhaps follow in the steps of the one who is the wali or the one who is the muhsin. And this is basically to recite and study the Quran, do the dhikr daily, do the extra sunnah prayers, and also be steadfast in the sunnah, and of course the night prayer, qiyamul layl as well. That is a very important part of wilayah as well. And for such people who attain the love of Allah is a station where the believer is protected from evil and has his or her supplications answered among many other bounties. Allahumma jalna minhum. So with this we will conclude and hope to see you next time. Jazakallah khair for attendance, and may Allah give us tawfiq from all these beautiful gems we've heard and seen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik wa nashhadu wa la ilaha illa ant wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.